Barbecue Central Radio Show will air live at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Barbecue Central Radio Show will air live at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
All right, good evening, folks, and welcome to the really big Barbecue Central show. This is the show that talks about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling, broadcasting live and direct from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city of Cleveland, Ohio. It is the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on Wednesday. It's the Hump Day Barbecue Show. Should we rename it the Hump Day Barbecue Show? If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do it one of two ways, 877-448-0433. You can also email the show if you would care to do it through the written word, Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Two ways to get in touch with me. Everything else you want to find out about the show, you can hit it at the traditional website, thebbqcentralshow.com. As we do every Wednesday that we've been doing the show, it's now, I believe, in our third week of existence. Coming up in 10, 11 minutes from now, the Ask Dr. Barbecue recurring segment with Ray Lampe. We did have Steven Reichland, Icon, slocked, which is both slated and locked together. Slocked in to help me close the show, but he had a... I don't know if I would call it like a family medical emergency, but something that took substantially more precedence over doing a guest spot here on this show tonight. So we wish him well, but in high to-do replacement, we resurrect Connie's Recipe Corner. If you are a fan of the show, you know that means that my mom will come on and we will talk about some new recipes that she is getting into. And I guess kind of keeping in the spirit of what the Wednesday show was about, and we'll get into that here in a second. It's not, the recipes that she does, if you've heard her on the traditional Tuesday show, her recipes aren't ones that traditionally require a grill or whatever. So, it's just more general cooking stuff. And as always, if you're interested in trying what recipe she's working on, you just need to shoot me an email, and then I'll forward those over to you via email in a Word document. You can try them out. You can let me know how well they worked, how well they didn't work, suggestions that you might have for adjusting them to your palate or particular flavor profile or preference, and we'll go from there. So that is what we have on tap tonight, plus your phone calls and emails if you want to do it. Again, those numbers, 877-448-0433. Email is greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Beautiful stuff. If you missed the show last night, shame on you. However, I certainly understand. So here's what you want to do. At the very least, if you don't get the show live, subscribe to the podcast. And you can do that a number of different ways. The, I guess, most popular way that people do it is through iTunes. So if you search into the podcast section of iTunes, BBQ Central Radio Show, you'll see the traditional logo. It kind of looks like this thing in some form or fashion, a little bit more square. But, you get the idea. There's also a Barbecue Central podcast, which I would also suggest listening to because I also did those. But those were the pre-recorded shows that I did prior to doing the live show, which is almost now in its 6th year, if you can believe it or not. You can also use a podcast catcher or an XML retriever or whatever geeky term you want to use. If you don't know the XML address for the show itself, you can email me, and I can certainly hook you up with that. Or you can just subscribe to the newsletter, because all of that information is jam-packed and sent out each Tuesday and now each Wednesday, if I can remember. And you can subscribe through such formats or platforms as Juice Catcher, which I used prior to getting my iPhone device. And now that I have an Android smartphone, I use something completely different. However, doesn't mean that you can't subscribe to the iTunes or the podcast in any number of different ways. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel because we do shoot video here while we're also doing the show, and those go up pretty much an hour, 2, 3 after we air the show live through OutdoorCookingChannel.com. It does go to YouTube. And then, of course, you can get all of my archives through the Outdoor Cooking Channel. Hold on one second. Give me 1 second. So I heard my phone dinging like 5 or 6 times. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't getting a late entry cancellation, but we are all good. So full archives can obviously be found right at my website as well, thebbqcentralshow.com. Now, if you missed the show last night, some highlights. We started out the show with Ted Reeder. He did uncover that he has a new teaching gig at Niagara College. We talked about bone marrow prep and eating. We talked about apples, which ones to eat raw, which ones to cook with. We talked about the world record burger he made a few years back. Ted is always, literally, no pun intended, a gas, and I always enjoy talking with him. It's very unique to me to have conversation with him and just kind of, as I'm listening live, hear how his mind works and is so creative when it comes to food, not only in the culinary sense, but in the business sense as well. Then we talked with Justin McGlawn, the pitmaster of Lucky's Q. We talked about the upcoming Sam's Club final taking place this coming weekend. He's going to be looking to defend his crown that he won last year. Said he hasn't really been as consistent, or he's kind of been having the up and down year, but likes the way they're cooking now. Happy to be back in the finals. Hell, just wanted to get out of the local, and as he said, not Tippy Canoe. Tippy Canoe won the previous year, and then they couldn't make out of the locals the following year. And then came the most talked about segment in recent history. Okay, let's try that again. In recent history, if you tuned in, you got full blast in the face Ronnie Lotz. Again, easily one of the most talked about segments of the show in recent memory, and if you missed it, you'll have to go back to the archives for that one and check it out, because he jumped over 50 different topics. Place was haunted, how he got into business. He was a wrestling promoter, like the mouthpiece, like Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. To say he was a little amped up might be one of the biggest understatements on the face of the earth running right now. Check out Ronnie Lotz. And then we closed the show with Daniel Vaughn. Talked a bit about the worst barbecue joints in Texas. Ended on the Arby's brisket sandwich and the use of mayo. Let me tell you, when we actually sat down, because I had really, when I was outlining some questions that I wanted to ask Daniel, doing my show prep in advance during the week before, I've seen, and I talked with Neil Straughter a couple weeks back, and we were talking about that brisket sandwich impromptu, and he said, I could go without the mayonnaise. And I said, yeah, that seemed kind of weird. And then when we were talking with Daniel, when he said that he had interviewed the corporate chef for Arby's and was kind of asking him about this brisket sandwich, he brought up mayo on his own and said, it's really not for flavor, because that pairs well with barbecue sauce and French fried onion straws and the brisket that they're getting from some packer in Texas or whatever, some vendor in Texas. It's there, to add moisture, but because it's I don't know if you said like oily based spread, inherently it takes on the flavors that it is melding with. So you're not getting the mayonnaise taste, if you will. It's taking on the flavor of the brisket. So when you take a bite, the mayonnaise kind of coats your mouth. It has the brisket juices and flavor on it, and now it's rolling all the way around your mouth. And it's giving you, I guess, what I would consider to be more of an amped-up barbecue brisket flavor than you would get if perhaps the mayonnaise wasn't on there, which leads me to want to do this type of experiment. First, gather my druthers and put personal feelings aside about what's good barbecue and what isn't. And this doesn't mean I would ever go out and try the McRib. But get a brisket sandwich from Arby's with the mayo and one without, and see if the one with mayo has a better overall mouthfeel and a better, more importantly, overall flavor than the brisket sandwich without the mayo underneath it. Maybe that would be a brilliant science experiment. Maybe one we do right here on the show. How about that? I'm not going to say it's definitely going to happen, but there's no reason to think that, there's any reason why perhaps maybe it wouldn't happen. But you tell me. No, Matt, this is not horsey sauce. It's straight up mayonnaise. All right, we got Dr. Barbecue coming up for the Ask Dr. Barbecue segment. If you've been anxious to hear tips on cooking brisket for the backyard, you're going to want to take notes and make sure that you highlight this one in the archives, because we're going to be talking about it quite a bit. And then my mom after that, Connie's Recipe Corner. And let me quickly remind you, if you are somebody that it is in the barbecue and grilling market or industry, you have a product or service you're looking to get out in front of a consuming public that has an interest in this industry, this is the show you want to do it. Nobody sounds better. Nobody is more prepared. Nobody is more professional. Nobody offering you more options to get your wares, services, products, what have you, in front of the general consuming barbecue and grilling public. So if you are interested, please feel free to shoot me an email, greg@thebbqcentralshow.com. That's greg@thebbqcentralshow.com. And drop me a line. Tell me you're interested. We'll kind of sift it out, see if the product or the service fits with the show and the concept. I will vet you out a little bit to make sure you're not some fly-by-night operation, because my reputation is at stake with everybody I partner with as well. Everybody that I partner with, I use or I have used in the past, whatever the case may be. So it's not just I'm taking your money. It's not like that. We partner. And we'll go from there. greg@thebbqcentralshow.com. And we will be back with Ray Lampe, Ask a Dr. Barbecue, the weekly segment, coming up right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Radio Network studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Radio Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
If you got questions about barbecue or grilling, maybe as a hobby or even a business, looking to get an expert's point of view, why not ask Dr. Barbecue? You can submit your questions by clicking on the Ask Dr. Barbecue tab on the website. The doctor is in. Here's Ray Lampe with his nurse, Greg Rempe. Dr. Barbecue.
Wow. I didn't have my mic on. Ray, are we almost professional or what?
That's pretty exciting, I'll tell you. I'm fired up.
I think maybe next week I'll actually have the splash screen And we'll have the audio, and then we'll have a little video for the video side of people as well. And we'll be ready to make our fast jump onto Channel 3 local news at 2 o'clock in the morning to do the show.
Yeah, we'll really be professional then.
Oh, yeah, it'll be something, all right. All right, so we actually have quite a bit to get to tonight, and a lot of this is actually going to be brisket-based. It seems like whenever you open up the proverbial floodgates of let's ask somebody questions about barbecue, this brisket thing seems to rear its head, and, I don't know if it's fair to say that it freaks people out or that it is very... what's the word I'm looking for? What do you call the menacing? Perhaps might be a good word, but it's. I guess maybe because it's a cut that is traditionally maybe a little bit more expensive than, let's say, a pork butt or chicken, where if you screw it up, you're like, I'm not out that much money. You screw up a whole packer, you're out $50, $60 or more, depending on, what grade you're getting. So, just in an overall sense, do you think that there's too much of a stigma put on brisket?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things. For one, okay, the alternative would be a pork butt, and no matter, it's almost impossible to screw it up. So by about the third one, you're getting really good at it, and your pork butt's good. Everybody wants it. Pulled pork is available in the tub at the grocery store and at every restaurant known to man. I mean, it's a simple thing. Now, brisket's a whole nother deal. It seems kind of similar, but it's not. It's about your 30th one that you start getting good at cooking brisket. So I think guys are frustrated by that because they want it to cook like a pork butt and it doesn't. Or ribs, which they put so much effort into ribs. Guys are so into it that they seem to get really good at those. Or chicken. So brisket's the one that gives everybody fits. But you're right, it is expensive. It's you can't get it at the store. Generally most of us can't get it at the grocery store. So it's sort of this pie in the sky, aside from being really hard to cook. So, yeah, I'm not surprised to see these questions.
All right, so here's the first question. It's actually a Twitter or a tweet for all the non-technically challenged people out there, at JoshSports67. So, look, I'm sure he's looking for new followers, so follow at JoshSports67. What temperature do you cook brisket at? Also, rub suggestions, and maybe, right, we should make it a little bit more broad scope, because I did get a question from Josh Bailey as well, asking me about how to get good, consistent results in the backyard as well.
Yeah, one of the other things about brisket is everybody is looking for the magic bullet. What's the secret rub that's going to somehow make it good? What's the cooking temperature that's going to somehow not make it dry? And there's no such thing as that. It's cooking temperature. Let's just start there. Oh, for me, 225 to 250, 260. I'm not a psycho temperature watcher. I teach a lot of men how to cook barbecue, and they all want to make it an engineering project. Come on, man, the temperature. It's barbecue. Now, you want to start talking about cooking hot and fast, I'm out on that. I'm not a fan of that. It doesn't mean I won't do it once in a pinch when I have to, but I happen to think cooking barbecue, there's one way to do it, and you cook it at about 250 degrees.
All right, so as far as, I guess, rub is concerned, is there, and look, honestly, there's, 857,000 different rubs out there available on the market today. So, it's not even like it was 5 or 6 years ago. It's just proliferated like crazy. But is there a flavor profile that might work better with a brisket versus just, puking out a bunch of different names?
Well, yeah, hell, it's not the same as it was a week ago. There's 100 new ones, I think, Traditionally with brisket, we think about, I think a lot of salt on beef is important, but that's kind of a no-brainer. Peppery, Chris Capel's cowlick rub is a good one. I happen to think it needs salt, and I always tease him that if he'd add more salt and MSG to his rubs, they'd really be good, but I think that's a real peppery rub, and I like that one a lot, frankly. So a lot of salt, a lot of pepper to me. The school of thought is that you wouldn't want to put sweet on brisket, but, in the contest world, man, there's a whole lot of sugar getting put on briskets. I never agreed with that. I always put as much sugar on my briskets as I did on my pork butts when I was doing well, and never had a problem with that. So I think that's something we all want to think, that you don't put a lot of sugar on brisket, but I don't agree with that. So I think, frankly, any of the normal barbecue rubs that you're using are going to be just fine. I would maybe add a little bit of either red pepper or black pepper, or maybe a little bit of both. But other than that, I don't think about it as very different. Once again, guys are looking for a magic bullet, and I just don't think it exists.
So when we talk about the word consistency, and it doesn't, this doesn't have to be, related to competition, although there is one competition question that is spiced in here as far as brisket are concerned. But, just like me, a guy in the backyard, and you cook a lot in the backyard too, Ray. I mean, let's be honest. What kind of a process can you institute, or are there things that you should do across your brisket cook to allow you to at least get some type of a consistent product, whether you're doing it every week or, every other month?
Yeah, these days I cook more in the backyard than anywhere else, frankly, which is kind of weird. But, well, it's funny. When I started years ago, we would buy the best quality choice briskets we could get our hands on, and we didn't really inject them with anything, so you always cook two, and inevitably they would come out different. We wrapped them at some point. It was pretty traditional what we have now. You wrap it in, 3/4 of the way through the cooking, and cooked them up to about 200 degrees. But without all these injections and everything, they were radically different. You'd often get one that was completely different than the other. Now it seems like, we buy these high quality briskets, and the packers, even at the choice level, understand what we're looking for, and they're pulling them, and they show up in the market. Between that and the crazy phosphate injections and the high quality rubs and the smokers that stay right on temp like magic, I don't know who's cooking two briskets anymore. I quit years ago because there was just no reason to. They were coming out exactly the same. It's like everything else. Just do everything the same way. Keep your notebook and know what temperature you're cooking at. But all these variables, gosh, the competition guys in particular, they've eliminated them all. These smokers are like, magic. They stay right on temp. They get the exact size brisket they want. They get these high quality briskets. They inject them with phosphates, and it comes out the same every week. It's pretty impressive. For the home cook in the backyard, if you've got like a crappy stick burner or something where you're having a hard time with the steady temperature is really important. I think that's probably the key. Leave all the fat on and just don't overcook it. I'm not a fan of cooking brisket real fast. If you know the science of how meat works, cooking it too fast is going to have all the fat run out of it, and it's just doesn't work that way. Sous vide. Read about sous vide if you don't know anything about it. It's a process where the meat never gets above 145 or 150 degrees, and they hold it for an extended period of time, and it loses basically zero weight and zero fat. And that's very much related to barbecue if you're cooking it nice and slow. You won't lose a lot of fat, and you won't lose all the collagen. Eventually, it will break down. It's going to take a little bit longer. I'm getting off on a different tangent there. I don't know what that has to do with consistency, but whatever it is, I guess that you do it the same every time.
The question that I ask on Tuesday's show to the competition cooks is, at one point, the guy that's leading the points chase said that he was starting to see perhaps a trend of people getting away from injecting. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. Everybody I've ever asked after that statement has said completely the opposite. But, in this day and age for a backyard cook, because there are so many injections widely available, is injection commonly thought of as it's only to be done in competitions and I shouldn't do it in the backyard? And if so, is that something that people should start introducing to their home barbecue arsenal?
Oh, I think injecting briskets is something you should do for sure. I think it's great. I was one of the original guys. I used to talk to Joe Ames, and he told us what that was all about, the Fab B. I'm a big fan of it. I taught a lot of guys how to use it back in the day. I was like the crack dealer showing guys how to use that stuff. But I'm a big fan of it. Yeah, I would use it at home, absolutely. Sometimes I like my brisket to be a little different anyway, though. I like to cook it plain without the injection at home. But I understand how brisket works, and it's going to be a little bit drier, and it might be a little chewy when I take it off, or it might turn into pot roast if I wrap it and leave it wrapped too long. I'm not that worried about it at home. I'm going to eat it that way. I may want to try and cook it like a Texas restaurant-style brisket with just salt and pepper and let it get a little crusty on the outside. So I may choose to do that day. But if I'm trying to make the perfect brisket to have for Christmas dinner, I would definitely use the injection products. Now, I'm not familiar with all the new ones that are out there. I was Fab B and David from Butchers when he was getting started. I tried some of his products early on and helped him. Helped him as much as I could, but I kind of guided him because if you remember, there was a time when we couldn't get Fab B, and that's what kind of created some of these other ones. But as far as I know, they're all very similar, and the phosphates are the key in my mind to keeping the brisket juicy. So if your brisket's getting dry, order up some of that stuff and inject it in there, and you may see a big difference.
Is there, we'll move on to the next question here in just a second, but perhaps all of these questions are leading to this speculation, and maybe you agree or disagree with it. There's a lot of backyard guys like myself that want to produce really great barbecue. I talk to a lot of top teams out there, and maybe in my own mind, when I'm in the backyard and I fire up the cooker, I'm competing against myself. I have no desire to actually get out there and do it on the competition circuit and get my balls kicked in. Absolutely not. However, when it's by myself, I might picture myself in a field with all these other teams, and I want to make a good brisket. Do you think that secretly there's a lot of guys like myself that don't really want to get out on the competition scene, but when they fire it up in the backyard, they want to produce competition quality barbecue? Is that kind of where we're getting at now?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely. I think that's why guys like Myron and myself and Chris have become so popular, because they think we have that. They want to know about the competition guys. We're so into this thing. We understand the difference between competition barbecue and what I call eating barbecue.
Yep.
But most people don't. They absolutely want to create competition barbecue. That's why all these rubs are on the market and are being successful. That's why the books all sell. That's why people all want to buy the smokers like the competition guys have. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think it's great. You get to a certain level where you kind of learn so much about it that you realize that maybe that's not the best thing to want to eat because it's just a little too sweet for me and a little too tender. But I don't think there's anything wrong with home guys trying to emulate it. I sure hope they keep wanting to do that, or I may lose some fan base.
Absolutely. We're talking with Ray Lampe in our weekly Ask Dr. Barbecue segment. His website, drbbq.com, and of course you can go to askdrbbq.com if you want to submit a question here for a future show. And we've been getting a large amount rolling in over the last couple of weeks, which leads me to the next question, still brisket-based, from Mike Pagel. It says, Dr. Barbecue, I'll be cooking an 11 to 14-pound American Kobe brisket at this weekend's competition. We call that Wagyu in this country because, of course, there's no such thing as American Kobe, Mike, but of course you knew that. You're just being cute. I'll be using my 22-inch Weber Smoky Mountain, cooking at 225, foiling about 5 hours in, and I tend on pulling it at 195 to 200 degrees. So the questions are these. Will this type of meat cook faster or slower than choice brisket? That's question number one.
My experience is that it doesn't. I know that's what everybody wants to talk about. My experience is really that it doesn't. I don't know. I mean, I've cooked a lot of both of them. I never noticed that big of a difference between them, frankly. I don't know. I know that a lot of people talk about it, but hell, it sounds like this guy's got it all figured out anyway. Does that sound like an engineering project? Or?
Well, I mean, it's... Aside from the fact he's got it all laid out, I mean, there is a fairly big price difference between the two, though, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, sure there is. I mean, it's like double, I think. I mean, I bet when I was, competing a couple years ago, I kind of decided to take it back up pretty seriously, and I did win a couple of contests, and I didn't think there was any way you had to just get them. For one, the quality of the meat is outstanding, but also, you're getting big, meaty, thick, wide briskets that you can't always get. I don't know where else to get. In Florida, I don't know where to get those. I guess Rub was promoting his meat buddy there in Winter Haven. I guess I could drive over there. But if I just call up one of the big suppliers, that I know that thing $150 later is going to show up at my house and it's going to be what I want. So if you're a legit competitor, I think it's the only way to go. If nothing else, because of size and shape, but quality as well. It's my understanding that they've bred some of those Wagyu with some of our more common domestic animals at this point. So I don't think it's that radically different of meat anymore. It's just really good quality. I've seen some real Kobe over the years, or whatever was as close as you could get, and it was very different. It was insanely marbled, and it was really soft. And that's not what I see when I buy it now. But what I do see is a kick-ass brisket. So I think it's worth it. But I don't know. And, you know, again, you can't time barbecue. Just get over that. Put it on. Briskets hold really well for a few hours, and just get the thing cooked and hold on to it. You know, I don't know. You can't time that stuff. I'm pleading the fifth on that one. I don't have an answer.
The second part of the question kind of leads back to what we were talking about as injection. But, you know, when you look at those higher grade or higher quality briskets, typically you associate that with, as you said, you know, a lot more marbling, potentially softer. So does injecting this meat lead to a potentially mushy product at the end?
No, and definitely not mushy, because if you understand what the phosphates do, they're not tenderizers. It's about keeping the meat from drying out. So those aren't tenderizers. I don't think that creates mushy meat. There's some people that think the higher grade meat gets a little mushy versus lower grade brisket, and it sort of does. I mean, the concept of cooking a brisket is you have this horrible shoe leather piece of meat, and you do your magic on it, and it melts. Well, those Wagyu briskets, you could probably take a hunk off and grill it and eat it. It would be pretty edible, I think. So no, it's not going to make it mushy. It seems kind of a shame to me to take that beautiful piece of meat and inject it. But I know when I got, again, a couple of years ago, I called in a lot of favors because I'd helped a lot of guys over the years. And almost everybody I talked to was buying those crazy high-end briskets and pumping them to death. So I did, and I did well with it. So it's kind of a shame to me. At home, I probably wouldn't. If I bothered to buy a $150 brisket to cook at home, I don't think I would inject it. And I think, see, one of the problems with brisket, too, though, is guys don't really know what it's supposed to be. They want it to taste and feel like pork butt in their mouth. They want it to taste and feel like maybe roast beef or tri-tip, and it's not. It's a whole different thing. If you go to those barbecue restaurants in Texas and eat brisket, you learn to understand it does have a little texture to it. It is a little crunchy on the outside. You do need to have a big sweet tea sitting next to you because it's kind of that's what brisket is. And a lot of guys they've never really had it, so they don't quite understand. They want it to be like a pork butt.
Ray Lampe joining us here on the weekly Ask Dr. Barbecue segment. All right, so let's kind of transition over. We'll stick with the beef protein here. This email question coming in from Bud Clark, and he's asking, best tri-tip recipe for the Big Green Egg. And I guess it could be any cooker, but obviously he's a Big Green Egg fan. You're the corporate chef for Big Green Egg. I think over your right shoulder on the top of that bookcase, you have like the smallest Big Green Egg ever on the face of the earth.
Look at that. I just bought it on eBay. It's brand new.
Will that cook?
I'm trying to figure out what year it is, but it's brand new, and it's like one of the original Japanese ones. Isn't it cool?
Would it cook if you put fuel in it?
Oh yeah, it's fine,
wow.
But it's virginal. I don't want to tarnish it.
Yeah, we don't want to dirty that up. Absolutely not. All right, so I guess first of all, if people aren't familiar, especially maybe middle of the country to East Coast, they might not be familiar as the term tri-tip. Obviously, the West Coasters, that's kind of where it lives and breathes. But maybe a little background about that cut of meat, and then a recipe that you like.
Yeah, it's definitely a California. Well, the whole West Coast thing. You go to Portland, Seattle, California. They are eating the heck out of those things. It's kind of cool. It's like going to Texas and there's a meat case full of beautiful briskets. You're amazed the first time you see it. In California, you'll see tri-tips at a good price, and there'll be a case full of them. Down here, I have to ask the guy at Publix if he has some, and they usually do, actually, and he'll get it out of the back, but they just cut them into steaks because people don't know what it is. It's a piece of the sirloin. It's one muscle of the sirloin, and it's triangular shaped, kind of like a boomerang shape almost, but it's thicker on the one side. And when you look at it, if you buy one, leave a little fat on the one side of it, but look at the grain very seriously before you go cook it, because it's much like a flank steak, where if you were to slice it against the grain, it's going to be a disaster versus slicing it, if you were to slice with the grain versus slicing it. So pay attention to the grain always. There it is. Yeah, see that grain that's going up and down on it?
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. You got to slice it weirdly. Don't just start slicing it like from the top to the bottom, because you're not going to be going against the grain. You want to go against the grain. The way I like to cook it, that thing is probably about 2 pounds. I like to cook it sort of slow grill. And actually, it's a perfect thing for Big Green Egg because you're cooking direct, but you can close the lid and calm the fire down. Sear it a little bit at first, but ultimately you want it to get to, just like a beef roast, about 120 in the middle, 125. I wouldn't go past that unless if you like it more than that. It's probably not a good choice for you, because if you overcook it, it's going to be tough. Now, there's guys that smoke them way beyond and get them tender and do pretty well with them. For me personally, I like it grilled till it's about 120 in the middle. Let it rest like any beef roast for about 5 or 10 minutes on the board, and make sure you slice it thinly against the grain and put it on some sandwiches, and you'll be very happy. As for a rub, kind of what I was talking about with brisket before, I think a lot of salt, a lot of pepper, a lot of garlic. And the legendary Santa Maria town out there in California, where they cook it over red oak.
Yep.
They just burn big piles of red oak, and they have those grills with a big wheel where it goes up and down. And so what they do is drop it down, sear it, and then move it up a little bit till it gets up to temp. A lot of garlic, a lot of salt, a lot of pepper.
Now, rub-wise for me, and I do have a little bit of experience with this, and I've had some tri-tip experts on the show over the years. Definitely with the red oak. The most common side on the left coast is going to be pinquito beans, which is, kind of like a chili bean per se, but it does have a little bit of a chew to it, so I guess if you don't like chewy beans or whatever, it might not be your cup of a tea. But the rub that you use, they do make some really good Santa Maria-style seasoning. And it's like you said, a lot of salt, a lot of pepper, garlic salt, I believe, is in there as well. And it's almost like a great all-purpose rub when you're doing it, because you can put it on a tri-tip, but then you could turn right around and put it on a steak. You could put it on a prime rib or, whatever other meat you really like. But, those three things are kind of key when it comes to tri-tip for me. I would assume, similar to you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's a reason they like it so much like that out there. I went out to Sagazio Vineyards in Sonoma and Healdsburg. They had just bought a giant Jed Master, and Chris Lilly's friends with those folks out there, but he couldn't make it. So I went the first day, and the guy that sold them the Jed Master told them they could grill on it. And I said, no, you don't want to do that. And they said, oh, yeah. He said we could do it. So they bought a bunch of tri-tips, and I said, okay. So we rubbed them with salt and pepper and garlic, fresh garlic, threw them on there and cooked them until they were the right doneness on the inside, and they were all gray. They weren't seared up, and they were so bummed out. And I told them that was going to happen. And you could eat them that way, but it certainly wasn't as good as brown stuff tastes good. Didn't somebody say that once?
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking with Ray Lampe. Ray, before I let you go, and obviously we have a lot to get to for next week already, so that's great stuff, aside from the questions that will matriculate in during the course of the week. Anything you're going to be up to over the weekend that you'd like to promote before I let you go?
No, I'm going to probably get drunk in my backyard Saturday maybe. I'm home for the weekend. Get ready for a big Bears victory over Washington on Sunday.
Probably won't be too hard. You got RG3, who was not the RG3 of last year after that knee injury.
Yeah, no, I'm running really hard doing this Sam's Club thing, and I finally have a week off, so I'm taking it easy for a few days, but I'll be back at it next week. Actually, be in Columbus next week, Greg. Anywhere good to eat there?
Hey, yes. You know what? Off air, I'm going to give you a place that you have to go for burgers. It's made every single television show. I think Guy has been there. And whenever there's a huge game, all of the play-by-play guys go, I'm going to get you the name of it, and then you tell me if it's up to snuff.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, we're talking with Ray Lampe. Ray, good luck, and good luck getting drunk in your backyard this weekend. And we'll talk to you again next Tuesday.
Questions, Reichland, you want me to answer? I'll be happy to do that for you.
Do I have any questions for Reichland?
Yeah, I could just answer them for him.
How do you feel about apples? It's National Apple Month.
I don't like apples. They're not very good.
Yeah, beat it, apples. Forget it. Ray, we'll talk to you again next Tuesday.
Thanks, Greg. See you.
You got it. There he is. Ray Lampe answering questions about everything, including but not excluding apples. I think he was actually not talking about apples at all. I don't know. All right, give me a couple seconds here to reset, and we will be back. Cold Beer Cheeseburgers in Dayton, Ohio. What's the name of that place? I want to say it was like Foreman's. It's down in the German district or something like that of Columbus. Where's my C-Town? Where's Scotty Walton? What's the name of that burger place, Scotty? Help a brother out. All right, we'll step away real quick, and then we will come back with Connie's Recipe Corner to wrap up the show. You are listening to the Barbecue Central Show right here on the Barbecue Central Networks.
Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Radio Network studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Radio Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Lampe.
All right, welcome back, 877-448-0433. Email Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Thanks to Ray Lampe for joining me last segment. We really lit it up, not me so much, but he really lit it up on the brisket talk. You know, I got to say, maybe everybody should just relax a little bit. Everybody's so worried about doing it at the well, you know, Michael's a little bit different because he is doing a competition. So in competition, things are timed, and you have to hit marks, and, you know, things are going slow or going fast. You're going to have to be able to adapt in order to make sure that you're hitting your turn-in times properly. But look, I mean, dude, if you're in the backyard enjoying 1 or 8 beers and a succulent day outside, I mean, what's the rush, brother? Relax. All right, my next guest has been cooking in the kitchen, honing recipes for as long as I can remember, and as luck would have it, I've actually gotten to eat a lot of her creations as well, with such succulent treats as a homemade red sauce, meatloaf, goulash, and how about cream-dried beef on toast? Mouth-watering yet? Goddamn right. Let's head on over to the hotline and welcome Connie's Recipe Corner. Connie Rempe joining me here on the show, a.k.a. my mom. Mom, what's up?
Well, Greg, who wants to actually have to follow Ray Lampe?
You do. Bring it. There's a reason,
awesome.
You know, it's like baseball. We have starters, and then we have closers.
Well, he's a good starter, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's one thing to be able to start the show, but you got to be able to close it strong, and that's why we have to go back to the Rempe blood, because we're the only ones out there that can bring it strong when the chips are down. And I don't think the chips are down necessarily, so no pressure.
Well, okay, good.
All right, good. So if you aren't familiar, listeners I'm talking to, if you aren't familiar with Connie's Recipe Corner, my mom comes on, we talk about some recipes that are either her current favorites or favorites that, what the hell happened to my camera? Oh, okay, I see what I did. These are recipes that she's either worked on or they're favorites of hers. You know, Mom, no offense, but over the evolution of this segment, I've come to find out that after I was left in Ohio and you beat it down to Florida, the culinary expertise went up 500 notches. God damn it.
When you don't have to cook for so many people, you know?
Well, you know, skills are important to continue to hone, no doubt about it. All right, so we are going to be talking about A, one appetizer, B, a entree, and then we will top it off with a dessert. So it's almost like you're going to a restaurant, except the benefit here is you're going to get great recipes. As always, and you would attest, fairly easy to do all around, right?
Always, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever really done anything that's going to be really complicated.
And you're not going to have to spend $700 at a restaurant. Save that money. Chip Mom and myself off 50% of the $700. You know, I mean, it's the least you can do, and then, you know, put the $350 into funds or something like that, for crying out loud.
Sounds good to me.
Right, all right. So we have an appetizer as we lead off every eating endeavor, and tonight it looks like buffalo chicken cheese balls. Never heard of these. They sound absolutely fantastic. What can you tell me?
Well, you know, it's kind of another take on buffalo wings. You know, I believe I've done buffalo chicken dip before.
Yes.
And anytime you have something to do with chicken wings in any variation, it's always a good thing. So
doesn't my dad, aka your husband, have the original chicken wing hot sauce recipe from Anchor Bar in Buffalo?
He absolutely does.
Watch
it.
Guard it like a vault.
Yes.
So much so that I've never gotten that recipe. That's how closely he guards it.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I think he would probably share it with you.
Well, I hope so. We'll have to talk about that off air, because I would hate for anybody else to get it who shouldn't get it.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah,
all right. Buffalo chicken cheese balls.
Yes. Okay. And this is, again, a really easy recipe, really good for, say, watching football and whatnot. We're using for the chicken a rotisserie chicken, which you can, buy at the grocery store. So
Yep.
It's going to make it really easy. And if, in fact, you didn't want to do that and you wanted to do it at home yourself, you could always use just a couple boneless chicken breasts and bake that. But we're going the easy route, and we're going to buy a rotisserie chicken at the grocery store and just take the skin off and chop it all up. You're adding to that the Frank's hot sauce, which is, always a must,
Yep.
and hopefully everybody can find the Frank's. Adding just some pepper, sharp cheddar cheese, scallions, and then you're going to just mix that all together, roll it into balls about the size of golf balls is what the recipe calls for, but you can make them any size you want. If you want really small ones, so you can just one pop in the mouth and it's done. That's a good thing too. But once you roll them into the balls, you're going to do like your breading station. So you're going to have flour in a dish and eggs in a dish and panko breadcrumbs, which are the best breadcrumbs ever.
Yes.
And, you're just going to roll them in the flour and dip them in the egg and then roll them in the panko and then deep fry them, which is, takes a couple of minutes in the deep fryer, and they're done. When you go for your nice dip, we're making our own, although if you, wanted to go the easy route, I'm sure you can always just buy some blue cheese dressing and use that if you need to. But, this is really simple. You're using mayonnaise and blue cheese and some more hot sauce with your Worcestershire sauce, a little salt, a little lemon juice, some garlic. Just mix it all together, and that's your dip, and it's really delicious and very easy.
Well, if it's one thing I know, it's Centralites love to pop hot balls in their mouth. Oh, did that sound weird? I'm sorry. Yeah, plus a nice blue cheese dip to go with it. All right, so look, I'm lazy. There's no doubt about it. Does it sound more labor intensive prep wise than it really is?
No. I mean, it is easy. And if you have this dip left over, it's a great salad dressing, too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's really good. So it is not really labor-intensive at all. It goes really quick, and it actually eats up really quick, too. So
good. All right, so those are your buffalo oh, crap. I forgot what they were called. The buffalo chicken cheese balls. That's right. I forgot the cheese. I was going to say buffalo chicken balls, but buffalo chicken cheese balls. And then, so we've eaten the aperitif, and now it's ready for the main course. And tonight it's slow cooker beef burgundy. And now, of course, I would always throw out the cautionary note that on a barbecue and grilling show, the term slow cooker always brings negative connotations. But hey, we're not talking about barbecue and grilling here. We're getting a little bit more wide open. Slow cooker beef burgundy. What do we know?
Well, maybe we should have labeled it crock pot,
Yes, because nobody has any idea that slow cooker and crock pot are the same thing.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yep. They are synonymous, so sorry about the slow cooker thing. I forgot that means a lot of different things for you folks, for sure.
Well, those people are, not me, Mom. Those people are snobs. Forget that.
Well, again, this one is very easy. It's something I like to do on a day that I'm going to work because I can put it all together beforehand, slap it in the crock pot, and when I come home, dinner's ready. So to prep that up, I use just 2 pounds of stew beef.
Right.
And you want to get that out of the refrigerator, let it come to, kind of room temperature. It's best to pat it dry so you don't have any excess liquid on it. Right. Salt and pepper them, and then you're going to flour them and excuse me, then you're going to saute them in a hot skillet with some oil in there. Just make sure that you get it all browned. Put that in the slow cooker when they're all nice and browned. And again, in that same pan, you're going to cook 3 slices of bacon. Actually, you know what? You're going to do the bacon first. Do the bacon. cook it until it's crisp, take it out, let it cool off and drain on some paper towels. Then you're going to crumble that up, put that in the slow cooker. Then you're going to do your beef into that grease that's left in the pan.
Sounds
so
better.
You're going to get, nice flavor in there.
Yep.
So you're going to do the bacon, then you're going to do the beef. Again, just keep adding it to the crock pot. In that same pan, you're going to add the mushrooms that you're going to quarter. I use the frozen pearl onions. The recipe calls for a half a bag, but you can use more or less, as you want.
Yep.
So you're going to add mushrooms, the pearl onions, a couple cloves of garlic to that pan and saute them for about 5 minutes until they're nice and brown too. You're going to add that mixture to the slow cooker. Then you're going to glaze your pan with a couple cups of burgundy and some beef broth and some ketchup. Gives it a nice flavor. So you deglaze the pan, get all those tasty little bits out of the bottom of the pan, add that to the slow cooker. You're going to put a couple bay leaves in there too. Put the top on the slow cooker, and you can cook it, let's see, what do I have, on low for about 4 or 5 hours, or on high for about 5 hours, and then on low for about 7 hours. Although I've let it cook a lot longer than that, because usually I'm at work like 9 hours. So, it's not going to make any difference. And in the end, you're going to thicken it up with a little flour and water that you're going to stir together and just make it a little thicker. And I usually serve it over hot buttered noodles. People like it with mashed potatoes, and it's really good. Serve it with some crusty bread and a nice salad, and it makes for a really delicious dinner and with very little effort.
Who are these people you're talking about?
Well, our friends that come down here, Galucci's, that like to winter down here. They're always coming over, wanting to be fed. We actually have friends that, live down here, and we invite them over and actually feed them too.
Oh, man, there's a lot of needy people down there in Florida. Jesus Christ. Now,
no matter where you live, people want to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they're not paying or cooking, they want to eat more and more.
It's very true. Yes.
No wonder this country's fat. In the recipe roster, or in the ingredients roster, that also says 2 bay leaves. Is that a necessity?
No, you know what? Nothing is a necessity.
Well, here's my question.
If you don't have bay leaves, okay. If you don't like the onions, you can leave those out. If you're not a mushroom person, you could leave those out. You could throw in some carrots if you want to. It's a recipe which is, what I call more of guidelines. So, you can kind of add and subtract to your taste.
I've never, ever used one, let alone 2 bay leaves. What does that actually do?
It's a seasoning. It has flavor in it. So when it stews in any juice, it imparts a bay leaf flavor. So if you've never had one, I suppose you should buy them and take a whiff of them, and you kind of get an idea that that's the scent that it's imparting in whatever you're putting it in.
Does it smell or taste like chicken?
Well, certainly. Everything tastes like chicken, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So that is slow cooker beef burgundy. Now, when you mention burgundy, wine snobs start pouring out of the woodwork. Do you just want to buy the lowest grade burgundy because you're more of a deglazing type of a thing? Or do you want to buy perhaps a middle of the road or upper, cook with a couple cups, but then you're also enjoying a glass of the burgundy wine while you're eating?
Yes, you never, ever want to cook with a wine that you don't want to drink also. So, as you are definitely cooking this, you're going to be drinking a nice glass of wine because you're going to not put the whole bottle of wine in there. So, yeah, you want to enjoy a lovely bottle of wine.
All right, lovely bottle of wine. All right, so after you get done, you've stuffed yourself with the buffalo chicken cheese balls. You've kept room for the slow cooker beef burgundy. We couldn't possibly have room for something dessert-wise until you realize that's dessert. Now, look, I've been highly critical of never eating anything you've brought to the show, well, except for a couple things. This is one of them, a family favorite from long ago, frozen strawberry yogurt pie, making its successful, triumphant return here to the Barbecue Central Show. Well, I guess that would be inaugural return to the. It can't be inaugural return. Making its debut. How about debut?
Debut work.
Something that we enjoyed as kids quite often, and then it kind of went away. And then when we were talking on the phone a little bit earlier today, my twin brother said, what about this recipe about a year ago? And all of a sudden it's made this popular reemergence.
It has. I mean, truly, we had kind of forgot about it. We used to, as you say, as kids, you guys ate it all the time, and it was like we moved down here, and it was kind of one of those things I didn't make anymore until, your brother called and said, hey, what's that recipe? And it's like, oh, yeah, that was good, and we've had it routinely ever since. So, it is a light and fluffy kind of dessert, after having, a rather hearty appetizer and dinner, this is, you're definitely going to have room for this. So, yeah.
All right, how do we make it?
Easy to make.
How do we make it?
The filling is just 3 containers of strawberry yogurt.
All right.
And a container of Cool Whip. You're just going to mix that together, set it aside, and you can either make your own graham cracker crust, which I usually do, or you could buy, a graham cracker crust that's already pre-done, but, making it is not that difficult, and it just requires a package of graham crackers that you're going to crush, a half a stick of melted butter, a couple tablespoons of sugar, mix it all together, pat it into the pie dish, pop it into the oven, and cook it for a little bit until it's, crispy. Let it cool down, pour in the filling, pop it in the freezer, and, freeze it for, it's probably going to take 3 or 4 hours or overnight, and you just want to take it out of the freezer for 5 or 10 minutes before you cut it, just so, you can cut it a little easier. But, it's really refreshing, and you can use the fat-free yogurt and the fat-free Cool Whip, and, it's basically good for you.
Basically good for you.
Well, except the, Cool Whip is probably not the best thing for you. And
what? It's the best thing for you. I highly recommend it. I recommend eating Cool Whip by the spoonful right out of the container, for crying out loud. Who said that that's not good? Jesus made it good for a reason. Yeah, well, if it's delicious, it's good for you. It has to be that way.
Well, certainly. I'll go with that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, certainly.
And another way, when you kids were little, I used to make the filling and just put it between a graham cracker that I had cut in half, so then they were like squares, and like an ice cream sandwich. Only it was a yogurt sandwich.
So a weird thing just happened to me just then, and we're not talking about any of the food, but you just said "you kids." And that's what Grandma LaPiana used to call us, you kids. That's crazy. Wow. I just had a very shuddery moment there for a second. Nobody else can appreciate that except you and me, so screw everybody else. I don't care. So easy enough. Frozen strawberry yogurt pie is dessert. For the entree, it was slow cooker beef burgundy, and then you started it all with the buffalo chicken cheese balls. Now, as always, if anybody is listening to this now or in podcast form, all you have to do is send me an email, Greg at the BBQ Central Show, reference the date, which is October 16th. Is it October 16th? And I will send this to you via Word document and an attachment through email, and try it out. Let us know what you think. I'll pass your thoughts along to my mom when I talk to her. And, make adjustments, make improvements, make non-improvements if you see fit, whatever the case may be. We're more than happy to get your feedback on these recipes. And, Mom, as always, I appreciate you coming on and sharing what's new.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. There she is, my mom. Bringing it strong, helping me close the show correctly tonight. And that's all that I can ask my mom to do these days. Getting old now. Not going to lie. Mom, no offense. All right. Let's put a wrap on this Wednesday show before we head out. I want to thank Ray Lampe, Dr. Barbecue, for joining me. Talked a lot about brisket. Go back to the archives and get all of that stuff. There's a lot of great information shared there. Lots of questions in the queue already for next week. If you have a question for Ray to answer, ask drbbq.com. That's the easiest way. Or tweet at me, at BBQ Central Show, hashtag AskDRBBQ. Then my mom, of course, if you want some of her recipes, email me October 16th for the subject line, and I will return email with an attachment in Word format-wise, and you'll be set to go there. Cook with raw cast iron, season it each and every time. Give you generations of rust-free service. Also September 11th, 2001. I will see you back next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.